The roar of the crowd, the clash of steel, the thumb pointing down to seal a warrior's fate. These are the images Hollywood has burned into our collective consciousness about Roman gladiators. Yet the reality of ancient Rome's most spectacular form of entertainment was far more complex, nuanced, and surprising than any movie could capture. The gladiatorial games were not merely brutal bloodbaths, but sophisticated spectacles that combined athletics, theater, social control, and political maneuvering. From the majestic Colosseum to the smallest provincial amphitheater, these contests revealed as much about Roman society's values, class structures, and entertainment appetites as they did about combat itself. As we peel back the layers of Hollywood dramatization and centuries of misconceptions, we discover that the truth about gladiators is often stranger and more fascinating than fiction. Let us examine 5 persistent myths that have distorted our understanding of these ancient warriors and the games that made them famous. Picture this: an emperor raises his hand. 50,000 Romans hold their breath. A single gesture will decide if a man lives or dies. But what if everything you think you know about that gesture is completely wrong? Myth 1. Did thumbs down really mean death?
The iconic image of an emperor's thumb pointing downward to condemn a gladiator is likely historically inaccurate and logically impractical. Consider the practicality. How many gladiators could actually see the precise direction of a thumb from across the massive expanse of the Colosseum? A misread signal could result in killing the wrong man, a mistake with serious consequences. What likely occurred was quite different from our modern interpretation. The gesture for mercy was called pollice compresso, a compressed thumb, essentially a closed fist. The motion to kill wasn't thumbs down, pollice peso, but rather pollice verso, meaning thumb turned. While historians aren't entirely certain what this gesture looked like, some evidence suggests it may have been a raised thumb moved across the throat, a slashing motion still universally understood today as a death signal. Additionally, the crowd would sometimes chant "Jugila, jugila," that is, jugular, jugular, at which point the victor would cut his opponent's throat. The modern association of thumbs up with approval and thumbs down with disapproval has created a persistent but incorrect understanding of how these ancient death sentences were actually communicated. Now, imagine attending the greatest show in the ancient world. Tens of thousands of spectators. The most violent entertainment ever conceived. So, how much did a ticket cost? The answer reveals something profound about how Rome truly controlled its people. Myth 2. Did Romans have to pay to watch gladiators fight? Contrary to what many assume about ancient entertainment, gladiatorial games were completely free to attend. This wasn't merely generosity, it was calculated social engineering. In a society where 1 in 4 people was enslaved and poverty was widespread, Roman emperors and senators understood a fundamental principle of maintaining power: bread and circuses. The ruling class provided free food, unlimited water access, public baths, theater performances, horse races, and the most extravagant spectacle of all, gladiatorial combat. This was a deliberate strategy to prevent social unrest and rebellion among the masses. Romans would gather in open spaces like the Forum to receive free tickets, typically carved from bone or terracotta. These tickets indicated which numbered arch of the Colosseum they would enter through and where they would sit according to their social class.
The games were sponsored by an editor, usually the reigning emperor or wealthy senator, who understood that the more spectacular the games, the more popular they would become with the people. The entertainment went beyond just watching. Organizers held raffles where spectators received wooden balls inscribed with prizes ranging from apartments and money to meat from the animals slaughtered that very day. The scramble for these prizes often resulted in wrestling matches breaking out in the stands, adding yet another layer of entertainment to an already chaotic atmosphere. So you've got your free ticket, you've found your seat, the sun rises over the Colosseum. But here's what no one tells you. The gladiators? They weren't even the opening act. What happened before them was far darker and far stranger than you could ever imagine.
Myth 3. Were the games only about gladiator combat?
The gladiatorial games were far more elaborate than simple one-on-one combat. They were all-day affairs, divided into 4 distinct parts, each offering different forms of violent spectacle. The day began with the Venatores games, where men armed with spears roamed the Colosseum floor, waiting for deadly animals to emerge from hidden trapdoors beneath the arena. This was followed by the animal games, where exotic beasts brought back by the Roman military from conquered lands, elephants, lions, crocodiles, and any creature they could transport by boat were displayed and slaughtered. The elephants, too large for the underground passages, entered through a massive door on the side of the stadium. The midday games introduced an even darker element: theatrical executions. The animal games continued, but now convicted criminals were placed unarmed on the Colosseum floor to act out Greek mythology with fatal consequences. For instance, they might recreate the story of Prometheus having his liver eternally devoured, except in this version, real animals were used on actual condemned prisoners. Only after these horrific preliminaries did the main event arrive: the gladiator games themselves. These featured trained combatants, including defeated soldiers fighting for their lives, though not all were merely condemned men. Some were celebrated warriors, worth more alive than dead. Close your eyes and picture a gladiator. I bet you see a muscular warrior facing a roaring lion. It's an iconic image. It's in every movie. And it's almost entirely wrong.
Myth 4. Did all gladiators fight wild animals?
The conflation of gladiators with beast fighters is one of the most common misconceptions about the arena. In reality, fighting animals was the specialized domain of Venatores and Bestiari, hunters and beast fighters who trained specifically for this purpose. These specialized warriors faced an extraordinary menagerie of creatures, from relatively manageable animals like deer and ostriches to genuinely deadly predators, including lions, crocodiles, bears, and even elephants. Standard gladiators, who trained to fight human opponents using specific combat styles and weaponry, were rarely involved in animal fights. The skill sets were entirely different. Fighting a human opponent with a sword required different tactics, training, and equipment than facing a charging rhinoceros or an angry bear. The Venatores had their own techniques, weapons, and glory separate from traditional gladiators. The Roman appetite for exotic spectacle was insatiable, and beast hunts showcased the vast reach of the empire, featuring animals from the furthest corners of the known world, including hippos, hyenas, leopards, jackals, zebras, and even creatures from as far as India and China, such as tigers. The herbivores often proved more dangerous than expected. Ostriches and hippos were particularly formidable opponents.
This separation of specialties meant that when we picture a gladiator, we shouldn't automatically imagine someone fighting a lion, but rather a trained athlete specialized in human combat, while the beast fighters were an entirely different category of arena performer. The undefeated champion, the perfect warrior, never lost a fight, never showed weakness. It's the stuff of legends. But ancient tombstones tell a very different story, one carved in stone, complete with win-loss records that would shock any Hollywood screenwriter.
Myth 5. Were all gladiators undefeated champions?
The romantic notion of gladiators as invincible warriors is thoroughly contradicted by historical evidence. Monuments commemorating gladiators often listed their complete fight records, including losses. One such memorial reads 10-3, 10 wins and 3 losses, proving that defeat didn't automatically mean death. This makes perfect sense when you consider the economics. Gladiators were expensive investments. They required housing, food, medical care, massages, and extensive training. Their owners had significant financial stakes in keeping them alive. Many of the most popular gladiators became genuine stars, receiving preferential treatment and sometimes even monetary rewards. When a defeated gladiator lay helpless on the arena floor, the victor would look to the editor or the crowd for a signal on whether to deliver the killing blow. Often, the crowd would signal for mercy, specifically because they wanted to see that particular gladiator fight again. The entertainment value of a skilled, recognizable fighter far outweighed the satisfaction of watching them die. These gladiators had fan bases, much like modern athletes, and killing a popular fighter could actually turn the crowd against the game's sponsor, a political disaster no emperor or senator wanted to risk.
These were the myths of the arena, the gestures, the crowds, the animals, and the truth behind the fights themselves. But this is only half the story. In part 2, we'll explore the lives of gladiators outside the arena, their fame, their training, their hidden struggles, and the astonishing afterlife of the Colosseum itself. Join me there, and as always, thumb up, subscribe, and let's uncover history together.